It's 1976, and the NFL is full of future Hall of Fame quarterbacks. Roger Staubach, America's golden boy. Ken Stabler, the outlaw gunslinger. Fran Tarkenton, the scrambling magician. These weren't ordinary players, they were legends walking among mortals. And then, the impossible happened. A 25-year-old quarterback, virtually unknown, took that MVP trophy home. Bert Jones was a prototype that nobody was ready for. This is a story of the fastest ascension in NFL history and the most brutal fall from grace the league has ever witnessed.
We did a research study to figure out the best quarterback seasons in NFL history, and the number one season was Bert Jones in 1976.
Bert Jones wasn't exactly unknown. In 1973, he was actually drafted second overall by the Baltimore Colts. The Colts back then were a serious franchise, having just won the Super Bowl in 1970. But in the next few years, things started to get rocky. Quarterback Johnny Unitas was pushing 40 and had given his all for Baltimore. The Colts needed to invest in the future, and Bert Jones seemed perfect for the role. In his college days, he was known for being one of the strongest passers in his age group. He was also 6'3", which back then was considered to be tall for a quarterback. Jones was a QB for the future, no doubt, but management proceeded to make a bold move.
And on opening day in Cleveland, Jones connected on the first touchdown pass of his professional career. But Jones was just a raw rookie and not yet the Colts' savior, as Baltimore lost in Cleveland 24-14.
They decided that Bert Jones was also their quarterback of the present. They pretty much threw him in at the deep end. And early on, he didn't swim. Just one win in his first 5 games, until finally he was benched. The thing is, rookie QBs didn't become instant starters back then, something team owner Robert Irsay didn't agree with, and he would end up clashing with head coach Howard Schnellenberger over this matter. After breaking his promise in '74 against the Eagles, that was a breaking point. He was fired immediately and replaced by GM Joe Thomas. The Colts ended the season with 2-12 record, and Jones heard the boo birds every time he played. 24 interceptions against just 12 touchdowns in his first 2 seasons. But entering the 1975 season, one man arrived who would get his career back on track.
After the season was over, the big decision I had to make, one of the biggest decisions I had to make naturally, was finding a head coach. The name that came up most often was Ted Marchibroda from the Washington Redskins.
The Colts hired Ted Marchibroda to be their new head coach. Now this was a man who had never been a head coach before, and he was walking into one of the toughest rebuilds you could ask for. But Marchibroda did have valuable skills elsewhere. You see, he was a former quarterback himself and was known for developing all-pro QBs like Robin Gabriel and Sonny Jurgensen. Jones now had a great mentor by his side, and in Week 8 against
the Colts suddenly exploded and produced the most astounding comeback of the season. Baltimore went on to roll up 35 points, and the Colts outscored the Bills 42-35.
After being down 28-7, Bert Jones helped muster up one of the best comebacks of the season. This game was a sign of what was to come, as the Colts won 9 straight to end the season. Unfortunately, the rags to riches story would end in Game 1 of the playoffs. Against the Steelers, Jones got hurt in the first quarter and missed most of the game. This was a team with 7 Pro Bowlers on defense and would dominate their way to the Super Bowl. Still, Jones's numbers in '75 were commendable, in particular his rushing yards, as he led all NFL quarterbacks in this metric. But it was Tarkenton who stole the show this season, with the MVP leading the league in passing touchdowns. The league was full of talented slingers with years and years of experience. Nobody believed a 25-year-old QB could win the award. But in 1976, an avalanche was coming. Bert Jones wasted no time heating up. In Game 1, he enjoyed his 3rd best career passer rating. In the coach's own words, this 25-year-old was performing like a veteran. But up next was the Bengals, who finished 11-3 the previous season. Jones, though, made sure to keep the heat on high His fifth 300 passing yard game helped the team edge past Cincinnati. If all passes were covered, he never panicked. The Colts had the wind at their backs, but not for long. Week 3 against the Cowboys wasn't too fiery, as Staubach showed him levels. But Jones bounced back instantly with a win against the Buccaneers, once again eclipsing the 100 mark in passer rating.
Bert Jones and the Colts came back home and got well immediately against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
It was a clinic against Tampa Bay, but the next game against the Dolphins was a masterclass. Bert Jones almost went perfect on his passes, throwing 11 for 14 with a touchdown and no interceptions. Folks, this wasn't a normal performance in the 70s. Defenses got better, and they weren't held back by any rulings just yet. This showed in the stats, as only one player was able to achieve a 100 passer rating this decade, who was Staubach back in '71. But Jones? He was well on his way to joining his exclusive club, and the games against the Bills was further proof of that. The young field general turned the pressure up another notch, with 200 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, and in the following week, it was a public execution of his hero.
If you asked me to pick the #1 quarterback in the league, I'd pick Bert Jones. Who else?
Bert Jones made history, achieving a rare feat of 4 consecutive games with over 100 in passer rating. He picked apart the defense like a locksmith, as Joe Namath watched in awe. Namath himself declared Jones as the #1 QB in the league. But if he wanted a real shot at MVP, his performances had to keep rising, because over in Oakland, Ken Stabler was throwing touchdowns like it was nothing. Jones had a monumental task at hand to become one of the youngest ever MVPs. But Jones had to remove any doubt around his MVP case, and in Week 9 against the Chargers, he did just that. Bert Jones continued to showcase his strong arm, torching San Diego for 275 yards and 2 touchdowns. Every throw looked like a ball on a string. For Jones, though, winning MVP probably didn't even cross his mind. He was locked in on one thing: winning. And unfortunately, he was about to get handed his second loss of the season against the Patriots. Jones had one of his worst career games against New England, who were breathing down their necks in the race for the top seed. But Jones sensed a Patriot surge and knew it was time to crank it up a notch. In Miami, he threw bullseye after bullseye, his 6th game with over 200 passing yards. But he couldn't rest just yet, because in Week 12, the Jets had learned plenty from the previous encounter. The difference between winning and losing MVP probably comes down to this one game.
Roger Carr added his 10th touchdown of the season from the league's top-ranked passer, Bert Jones. The man Joe Namath says is in a class all by himself. The Colts won 33-16 and clinched a spot in the playoffs.
The passing yards were less, but the touchdowns were as high as he could get. Ken Stabler was lighting up the touchdown column, and Jones knew he had to keep putting on passing clinics. Against the Cardinals, 241 passing yards, edging one step closer to being the passing yards leader.
The Baltimore Colts have scored 359 points so far this season, the most in the NFL, and that is due in good part to the classic rifle belonging to the Jones boy.
Jones was on 2,856. Fran Tarkenton was on 2,777. One final game, a moment Jones had been preparing for his entire life.
3 more touchdowns, including the 11th of the season for Roger Carr, and Bert Jones, of course, in yardage.
Bert Jones ended the season with 3,104 passing yards. He was one of only 3 quarterbacks to achieve over 100 passer rating during the entire decade, joining Roger Staubach and Ken Stabler. Not to mention his 214 rushing yards, and he did this in an era where QBs weren't protected like they are today, and defensive backs could get away with murder. If he had played under different circumstances, he probably would have been one of the greatest. But unfortunately, this story of Bert Jones doesn't have a fairy tale ending.
Playoff losses and a shoulder injury not even Hawkeye Pierce could fix.
I don't know what happened. We didn't have MRIs. X-rays wouldn't show it. In those days, you almost had to have exploratory surgery. Whatever happened to his shoulder, probably a torn rotator cuff, they never operated on it. They kept thinking it was going to heal. He kept coming back, playing great, getting re-injured. Kept coming back, getting re-injured. Basically, his career was ruined. To me, Bert Jones is in the Hall of Fame if he doesn't get hurt.
In my career, I can't think of another quarterback that I would say had a better arm than Bert. Bert had a laser. He had a great touch on the ball. He was tough. He was fearless. He wasn't afraid to run the ball, take a hit. He was almost famous for, before he would get hit, to jump up in the air. He was special.